Joy of Love, in Latin, Amoris Laetitia, is a post-synod apostolic exhortation by Pope Francis dated 19th March 2016. It was released on 8th April 2016. It follows the synods on the family held in 2014 and 2015. The document focuses on several issues of contemporary morality and church practice that had proved contentious during the Third Extraordinary and the 14th Ordinary Synods, presentations and discussions surrounding access to communion, divorce, sexual morals, and pastoral practice.
This semi-documentary will reflect on document Amoris Laetitia, Love in Marriage. We now listen to our main presenter, who will give us insight on this document.
Good morning. My name is Father Gary Mueller. I'm a member of the Vincentians, the Congregation of the Mission. I wanted to give you some introduction, some reflections on Pope Francis's document. It was published on the 19th of March in 2016, called Amoris Laetitia. And it's about love in the family. Now that's a very important point to begin on. This is not simply about love in marriage. This is not a document simply about the love between husband and wife, but what the document does is it contextualizes the love between husband and wife in the larger context of the family. Now, why is that important? That's important, first of all, because this document was the result of a synod, in fact, two synods. Two synods that stretched over a number of years. The first synod was in 2014, and the second one is in 2015. And during that synod, families, individuals, those who work with families, they all reflected on some of the complexities of family life in the modern world. The second reason that it's important to understand how this document was made is because Pope Francis, as he always does, tries to acknowledge the fact that documents written and the Church's reflections on marriage and family always happen in the context of culture. Culture is important because families exist not only in the United States and in Europe, but in Africa, Asia, Latin America. And so the complexities are made even, if you will, more complex by the concrete circumstances that families find themselves in the modern world. And so these synods were an opportunity for the Holy Father and for the entire Church to reflect together as a church on the complexities confronting families. Now, what the document did not try to do is to create more abstract norms, to create more rules and regulations, create more documents that describe in further detail the rules, regulations, and commandments with regard to the family. Now, I'm not against commandments and rules and further deepening our understanding of what God demands in the Scriptures and in the tradition and the magisterium. But there is also a role for reflection, for taking some time out and say, what's my circumstances and how does the Church call me to fidelity in the midst of my circumstances? And so one of the points of controversy in the document was a paragraph called paragraph 329. And in some circumstances, some were concerned, theologians and priests and religious were concerned that this gave local priests, pastoral ministers, the opportunity to give permission to the divorced or remarried to receive communion. And it's very important to understand, even if there are some ambiguities in the document, to understand that the document really does have to be read. The document calls us, as especially I think as priests and bishops, to not be too abstract with regard to the doctrine of the Church and in regard to marriage, but that the ideal that the Church sets up is rooted in the concrete situations and, it says, the practical possibilities of real families. That there certainly is grace available for all families. What the document attempts to do is to address a wide variety of complex and difficult situations. And I think, as a biblical scholar, what's important to understand the document does refer to Genesis, and it does refer to those foundational scriptural passages regarding marriage, but it spends a great deal of time talking about Psalm 128, talking about the happy home of the faithful. Blessed are all who fear the Lord, who walk in his ways. What your hands provide, you will enjoy. You will be blessed and prosper. Your wife will be like a fruited vine within your home, your children like young olive plants around your table. And then it ends up saying, may the Lord bless you from Zion. May you see Jerusalem's prosperity all the days of your life and live to see your children's children. Now this is a wisdom psalm, and wisdom psalms in the Old Testament are primarily aimed towards cultivating in the person the good life, the just life. God gives his blessings, and in response to those who accept God's blessings, well, God gives prosperity, children. And so this is very much what the document seems to want to cultivate. That in the Christian context, what is the primary image of marriage in the New Testament? That marriage mirrors the love that Christ has for his church. And that when we live in the church, despite that the church struggles and falls and gets up, calls upon God's grace, it is in need of repentance, the church is still God's splendid bride. And the best way, the most beautiful way that the church, and in all of its glory, is expressed, it's expressed through the family, as the church speaks about the family as the domestic church. And so this is Amoris Laetitia. This is the document. And it's a document, I think, that needs to be read and meditated upon and treasured. And if there are moments when the document seems unclear or seems to contradict the teaching, the ongoing and accepted teaching of the church, I would challenge those to read the whole document together. And of course, read it with other Christians in light of the prevailing doctrine of the church, the accepted doctrine of the church, and also, of course, the history of the church regarding marriage and family.
We also hear the views of others like married couples.
I am Jacob Jeketule Soko. I just want to give my views on the document of Pope Francis called The Joy of Love. I think my focus will be looking at chapter 4, where actually Pope Francis perhaps has observed some kind of issues regarding marriage or regarding the families. And I think what we see is Pope Francis previously had a call to the year of mercy. And I think this is actually a background looking at the issues of marriage and the issues of perhaps forgiveness in the families. But maybe just to begin, I want to focus more on people living fulfilled lives, which actually is the focus, one of the focuses in chapter 4. And in this, actually, at the back of his mind, Pope Francis looks at love that forgives. So in actual fact, in the family, we are looking at is there forgiveness among couples? Is there forgiveness in the families, the children, and so on, but really in the family itself? And he also focuses so much on love is patient. And in family, I think one thing is really to look at is to look at the issues in terms of tolerating others, because you don't work alone. You have to work with, perhaps you have to give up some things in order to work together with the other. And of course, Pope Francis also points out already that in any society, in any family, there will be kind of conflict. And actually he jokes about it when he says it's only in the graveyard that there are no conflicts. So in the family there may be conflict, but he focuses on the issue of forgiveness in the family.
My name is Caroline Buya. I'm married for 13 years now, and I would like to share some insights that I have derived from Pope Francis' Encyclical, particularly chapter 4, which talks about marriage and family life generally, but particularly like the document or that particular chapter concentrates on love. There are very important features of love that he has been able to bring out. One of the beginning points that he raises is that the word love has been misused in society, and so the document or the chapter sheds light on what love really is, a love that actually agrees with the precepts of God